So I thought that was a really interesting presentation. A lot of that presentation, you could actually scrub out velocity and write time to act instead, because we do a lot of stuff pretty much the same way. We pay people with options. We have a very capital light manufacturing model, so we have a very, very high return on capital business. We don't put a lot of capital, don't need to put a lot of capital into expanding manufacturing. A lot of the same sorts of topics you could just take and apply straight to time to act. So who are time to act? So time to act, we are a pre-IPO business. So pre-IPO means that we would like to, if the markets ever show any sign of improving, IPO our business onto the London stock market or onto AIM or onto the Aquis Exchange. So we're not yet listed. We will be, I hope, I think, at some stage in 2024. What I want to do today is not to force you to read the disclaimer, another long disclaimer. I'll let you read that in your own time. But really just to talk a little bit about who or what is time to act, what is the energy transition, and to introduce a little bit about our two main business activities. And I'll cut the time short to make sure that I spend enough time talking about time to act the group, time to act the parent company in the energy transition, because I think the energy transition is a really, really interesting topic. So the energy transition, just to focus on that, it's the biggest economic activity that I've ever seen in my investment lifetime. There are lots of challenges with pursuing the energy transition, but it is here, it is coming, and we are playing our part in that. And time to act is a new business model to allow investors, as well as our managers, myself included, to invest in that economic activity. So what we are is a company that is producing the picks, what we call the picks and shovels, and this expression, we're starting to see it coming through in a few places now. We're producing the picks and shovels that are used for building the energy transition. So we are producing some of the essential tools, the supply chain, involved in the supply chain for this big energy transition. What that means is what we're not doing, and you'll see this when I come on to talk about our businesses, we are not trying to invent new science. So we're not developing nuclear fusion. We're not developing new complex chemical processes for producing new chemical reactions for new parts. What we're doing is taking established technologies and applying those into the marketplace, which is the energy transition marketplace. What that means also that we're not is that we're not a private equity company, we're not a venture capital trust. We own and we operate the businesses that we have within the group. And we operate them in a very, very hands-on fashion, not venture capital by any stretch of the imagination. What we are is a development business, and we are developing small and medium-sized companies that are playing in that energy transition opportunity. And I think hopefully answering the question, why do so many small businesses fail? Why do so many small businesses and small business IPOs fail and underperform? And what we're trying to do is to answer that question. And we're answering that by providing finance to small businesses, by providing strategy to small businesses, and providing commercialization to small businesses. So if you asked any small startup entrepreneur in the UK, they would say that they spend far too much of their time trying to raise finance, trying to get the commercialization strategy right, trying to get the manufacturing or whatever the business strategy right. What we do is that we sit over the top of these small businesses and take a lot of that heavy lifting responsibility off of the small businesses so they can concentrate on the technology that they're producing, they can concentrate on the market activity, and we provide, as a parent company, a lot of value-added services. And that is to businesses which are playing in this energy transition. So what is the energy transition? I said it's the biggest economic opportunity that I've really ever seen. The energy transition, very simply, is just trying to wean humanity off of several thousand years worth of burning stuff and sending CO2 into the atmosphere. So we're trying to stop, the energy transition is trying to stop that happening, which is a massive task. Clearly it's not going to happen overnight. I think there are three very clear phases, three very clear steps in this energy transition. The first of those is understanding the problem, recognizing the problem, the fact that we are just throwing too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and heating the planet. That is a tick. I think we're pretty much at the stage where you don't find many people disagreeing with that statement, that we're slowly destroying the planet with too much carbon dioxide. Second challenge in the energy transition is raising the gazillions of pounds or dollars or whatever currency you like to fund the build out of this new infrastructure. And a lot of the problems that you see, I think, in the marketplace at the moment are the recognition of the fact that it's just going to take a lot of time and it's going to take a lot of money to mobilize the investment that we need into this transition. And then the third challenge, and this is where our businesses really come in, is the fact that you need a supply chain to be able to deliver all of these technological solutions to stop throwing CO2 into the atmosphere. And we are very much a part of that supply chain. And building a supply chain, it's not easy. It's not easy in the UK because we don't really have, under the current government, any form of industrial strategy. It's not easy worldwide when you're seeing new industries springing up and putting in place supply chains to support billion-dollar new industries is just tough. And so it's going to take time, but this energy transition is coming, and we can see it across our businesses in the three big red boxes that I put on the chart there, which is firstly falling cost of electricity or the falling cost of renewable electricity is going to drive the electrification of everything. So I think everyone is used to thinking about renewable electricity, wind blowing, sun shining, etc. But I think we're going to have to get used to the thought about electrifying heat and obviously electrifying transport, and this is electric vehicles. But electrification is going to happen. It is happening, a huge investment into renewable electrification, and our businesses play a part in that. Second big trend there, and this is way above my pay grade or anyone's pay grade really here in the room, is just the geopolitical tensions that you see around the world at the moment, whether it's Russia walking into the Ukraine, whether it's the reality of the fact that there is a war going on between China and the United States. It's not a military war, it's a cultural war, it's an economic war. But those huge geopolitical tensions are impacting supply chains, are raising energy security concerns, and everyone, I think, is aware of the fact that you hear a lot about critical mineral risk and lack of critical mineral supply, critical mineral supply chain risk. We, within our group, are addressing the critical minerals that are rare earth elements. So we have designed, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a bit, a generator which generates electricity for the offshore wind industry, which doesn't use rare earth elements. And rare earth elements are nasty critical minerals. They're very, very toxic and environmentally damaging to mine. Fortunately or not fortunately, they're all mined and produced in China. But there is a big geopolitical concern over whether those minerals are going to be available. If they're not available, you can't build the electric vehicles or you can't build the wind turbines to actually power the world. And then the third big factor, I think, of the energy transition is the emergence of new energy vectors. And here I'm particularly talking about the hydrogen economy. The hydrogen economy, I think if you asked me a couple of years ago, I was 50-50 as to whether there was really going to be a hydrogen economy. I think it's now 78 countries around the world have announced hydrogen strategies. So the hydrogen economy is coming. I don't think we're going to be using hydrogen to heat our homes, but we will be using hydrogen in many other forms, or turning that hydrogen into ammonia and using that ammonia as a more easily transportable energy vector. So three huge issues there, which it sounds very, very general in concept, but these are such big issues that the economic opportunity is absolutely enormous. And what we do across the group, so to finally come on and tell you a little bit about what we actually do, is we sell the picks and shovels. So we are producing the essential tools that help to drive, manage, create this energy transition. We are pretty much agnostic as to how that energy transition happens. So is it going to be hydrogen? Is the colour of the hydrogen going to be blue? Is it going to be green? Is it going to be electrification that's driving the requirement to put less CO2 into the atmosphere? Is it going to be nuclear? Is it going to be fuel cells? We participate in every single one of those industries, so we're pretty technology agnostic. One of the other common points that I share with the previous presentation is that, as well as having a very attractive bunch of senior executives and board members in the group, we have non-executive directors who make a difference. They're not there just for their corporate governance skills. So we have Andrew, who was the former CFO of Siemens Gamesa and the CFO of Siemens in the UK, who is pretty good in terms of giving us contacts into the wind industry. We have Rich, who was the managing director of Nordex, which is a second-line wind turbine manufacturer, the managing director in the UK and Ireland of that business, also pretty good at giving us contacts into the wind industry. We have Andy, who's a scale-up expert. So he built his own business from £1 million of sales to £50 million of sales before selling it, and he's helping us scaling up our business to address this opportunity. So NEDs who actually add value in their contribution to the board. I think it's such an important part of understanding what goes on within the company is look at the board, make sure that you like the look of the board, not just that they're pretty people like me, but that they actually are doing something, that they're not just there to tick compliance or governance boxes. So look, so that's the overview, the 30,000-foot overview of time to act. So we have within the business today, or within the group today, two businesses within the portfolio. Business number one, Diffusion Alloys. So Diffusion Alloys is a coatings company. Diffusion Alloys is actually a 60-year-old coating company. But despite the fact that it's a 60-year-old company, it is nevertheless absolutely unique. So we provide coatings that go into the blue hydrogen industry, that go into the green hydrogen industry, that go into parts of the nuclear industry. And in many of these, we are the sole provider of this technology. I would like to spend a bit of time talking about Johnson Matthey and the blue hydrogen industry. We have a supply chain agreement with Johnson Matthey, whereby we are their preferred supplier of coatings for their blue hydrogen plant. And actually, when I say preferred supplier, we are the only supplier. And we are the only supplier worldwide who can coat large tubes and pipes that go into blue hydrogen plant or nuclear plant. We have got to the stage where everyone else has left this industry, and there's a good reason over a long period of time why other players have left this industry. But in staying in it, we've now got to the moment where we're just about to hit an explosion of demand. And when this explosion of demand from the energy transition comes through, we are the only company in the world that can coat these parts. It's quite a nice situation to be in. It allows you to operate with very high margins and to generate very high returns on capital. So just to go into that in a little bit more detail, and I don't want to get too complicated here, but I've got a slide which just tells everyone what the difference between blue and green hydrogen is, in case people don't know. Blue hydrogen is just the terminology for standard hydrogen production, steam methane reforming, which throws CO2 into the atmosphere, but capturing the CO2 and then sequestering it or burying it or doing whatever you want to do with it, but not allowing it to escape into the atmosphere. So blue hydrogen, the blue hydrogen industry is just about starting now. We have our first orders. We're processing our first order next year. We have the supply chain agreement with Johnson Matthey, which will start to produce revenues from next year. Blue hydrogen is a very, very important colour of hydrogen. It's something that is going to be a very, very big market opportunity for us. Green hydrogen, you'll probably have heard a lot about green hydrogen as well. Green hydrogen is passing electricity through water and releasing hydrogen from the water. And we are a leading coater worldwide in that industry. I would go as far as to say that within Europe, certainly within Europe, we are the only coater of parts that go into these electrolyzers and into these fuel cells. So very, very nice competitive situation to be in, which allows us to make those very, very high margins. So blue hydrogen and green hydrogen, the hydrogen economy is coming, believe me, it's coming. There are some very, very, very big players out there who also think it's coming. Our risk is that we are just going to be too small to take advantage of the size of the opportunity. So what we did at the beginning of this year was that we completed a supply chain agreement with Johnson Matthey. So Johnson Matthey, formally, I don't think they're a FTSE 100 company any longer. They have been a FTSE 100 company. But we are their sole coating partner for their blue hydrogen plant. And as part of the relationship with them, what we've been asked to do is to quadruple our manufacturing capacity in Middlesbrough for blue hydrogen components, and to basically make sure that we run with them as they scale up themselves into this market opportunity. So this is going to take our revenue capability. The revenue capability in blue hydrogen today is somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million. We've got to scale that pretty quickly to 10 million, and that's the scale up that we're going through at the moment. Beyond that 10 million, we look at the demand for blue hydrogen, the demand forecasts out there in the marketplace, and come up with a conclusion that we're probably in blue hydrogen going to have a 20 to 30 million pound a year business. I have a fight or have a bet with the managing director of our diffusion alloys business that I think our green hydrogen opportunity is going to be bigger than our blue hydrogen opportunity. Again, we have some very, very solid and interesting customer relationships. We're also, I should have talked a bit about nuclear as well. We are the only coater in the Gen 4 liquid-lead cooled nuclear reactor consortium who are looking at coatings, providing coatings for the internals of nuclear reactors. It's it's challenging standing here trying to persuade people what an interesting business this is. But it is such an interesting business because we are, whilst we're small, we are so unique. To be the only coater for a lot of these parts on a global basis is an absolutely superb situation to be in. Finally, very quickly, Greenspur. So Greenspur is our development business. So whilst diffusion alloys is in revenues, it will be profitable next year and very, very profitable and funding the whole of the rest of the group the year afterwards. Greenspur is our development business. So Greenspur has developed a new type of generator for the wind turbine industry. It doesn't use rare earth metals or rare earth elements. It is using established technology, axial flux generator. There's nothing new about axial flux. It uses standard ferrite magnets, standard fridge magnets. If you like, there's nothing new about those, but it is very, very clever the way that it's put together and provides a solution to the rare earth supply chain at a cost that we think is going to be half of the cost of a current state-of-the-art generator. So we have some important supply chain collaboration partnerships there. So we link up with one of the world's biggest or fastest growing new magnet development business. And as that business goes into revenue stage, we're going to be looking to licensing agreements or licensing partnerships. So just very finally then, before I open up to any questions, what we do within Time to Act is that we help these small businesses to realise the opportunities that they might otherwise miss. We're very sequential about that. So our first revenue opportunity, which is happening now, is blue hydrogen. Then it's going to be green hydrogen, which is solid oxide. Then it's going to be the small wind turbine generators that our Greenspur business is focusing on. Then it's going to be nuclear and ammonia. Then it's going to be multi-megawatt offshore wind. So this is going to come through in a sequence, and it just reinforces the point that we are completely agnostic about what type of new energy transition economy we're going to go into. We're going to play in all of it. I don't think I'm going to talk about that one. And they're just in summary. So when we do come to our IPO process, hopefully at the beginning of next year, it'll give me the opportunity to come back and talk in a bit more detail about, or to see in a bit more detail about some of these points. Okay. And I'll stop there.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Okay, we've got any questions at all from the audience? Yep. Thanks, Hatel.
Thanks, Chris, for your presentation. Could you just expand on your role in CO2 management? I saw that little bubble cloud.
Yep.
How are you involved in that? If you could just expand a wee bit.
Okay, so in a grey hydrogen plant, grey hydrogen is the established technology for producing hydrogen today. Blue hydrogen captures that CO2 and buries it. Johnson Matthey is one of the world's leading technology providers of that technology, which allows you to capture the CO2. We coat the internals of the Johnson Matthey component, which provides the carbon capture. So that's where we play in carbon capture.
Question over there, please. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Interesting technology. Two questions. My first one is, why would these companies in the hydrogen business or other solicit your technology when some of the issues they face is that it's still not economic, you know, a lot of and so they're trying to reduce costs as much as possible. Yes, they're looking at the best technology and so on, but they're really trying to reduce costs. So trying to get a sense of how much additional costs your technology represents for some of these technologies.
Okay, our coating is a cost-saving technology. So I'll give you an example in fuel cell and green hydrogen electrolyzers. What happens in a solid oxide fuel cell, the fuel cell operates at 700 degrees. That 700 degree operating temperature forces chromium out of the base material, and the chromium poisons the stack. Now, the stack is the core of the fuel cell or the electrolyzer. With that poisoning, you get a stack life of 2 years maybe. If you stop the poisoning of the stack, you extend the cell life to 5 years. And you talk to every single fuel cell and electrolyzer company, what they're all trying to do is improve stack life. So this is a huge performance booster to the industry.
Okay, thanks. And my second question is a short one. Is I think you mentioned that the metal coating companies that were there have left this space. Why is that?
I'll try and give you the quick version of that. So the diffusion coating industry historically has coated, and diffusion alloys has historically coated gas turbine blades. And what happened in the gas turbine industry is that as aero engines particularly got hotter and hotter and hotter, diffusion coating technology lost its place in that marketplace. So all of the diffusion coaters around the world, the big ones, invested in the new types of higher temperature coatings that diffusion alloys didn't. And when they invested in new types of higher temperature coatings, they just abandoned the diffusion coating technology. So diffusion alloys underperformed for years throughout the 1990s and early 2000s because it stayed in a marketplace that was shrinking, that everyone else had left behind. What we did was that we forced them to exit that industry. So we shut down a factory, shut down 75% of our revenue base, walked away from it, moved what was left of the factory to Middlesbrough and refocused it on clean technology. And clean technology is what I call the gas turbine moment for diffusion alloys. The gas turbine industry just meant that the diffusion coating industry in the 60s and 70s just exploded, became an absolutely massive industry. And this is what's happening now to diffusion alloys. It's just seeing that market opportunity explode, but no one else is there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? There's this gentleman here, please tell. Thank you.
Explain a bit further your business operating model. Are you an administrator as a service, or do you provide the capital in order to gain these stakes? Is it a majority or minority stake? How long do you intend to hold these businesses, that sort of thing?
So both of the businesses that we have, we own 100% of both of them. So it's a permanent capital model, so we will own them forever. If we need to, want to, if we think we're the best owner for forever. We're not a VCT company, as I said, which means that we don't exit businesses. We don't have a timetable to ever exit anything. We'll hold on to them and grow them for as long as we are the best owner of those businesses. What we provide to them, we have a very rigorous internal process, which means that we provide certain central services, so IT, human resources, risk management are all central services, but then we also provide what I call value-added services from the centre as well. And the value-added services are budgeting, our performance controlling, our strategic management, looking at business models, helping commercialization. So there's a lot of strength within that value-added part of the management system, which is where we really add value to the businesses.
Okay, any more questions? I've got a couple of questions for you, Chris, actually. So what is the market like for joint ventures? I mean, how do you source your customers?
How do we source our customers? So commercial customers, we effectively have two types of customers. We have commercial customers and we have strategic partners. Commercial customers, we know how to find them. We know who they are. We know where they are. We have a lot of expertise because Diffusion Alloys, in particular historically, has worked with the bluest of blue chip customers in the world. So it's supplied to GE Power Systems, to Siemens Power Systems, to pick a blue chip industrial name that wanted something coated, and Diffusion Alloys has sold to them. So we work very, very closely with a lot of those names. We know who they are. And one of the value parts of the proposition is that we can take that knowledge of who those customers are and how to work with those customers and apply them into other businesses. So apply that to the Greenspur business. Strategic partnerships, we have a very clear strategic roadmap of every single market segment that we follow. So if you take, for example, blue hydrogen is not the best example. If you take blue hydrogen, we know who the top players in the blue hydrogen industry are. We have contacted and spoken to every single one of those. We selected Johnson Matthey as our core partner, and they selected us as their core partner. But that's part of a strategic mapping process, which allows us to just really get under the skin of every single market segment that we serve.
Okay. And how should investors judge your progress over the short and medium term?
Gosh, that's a very open-ended question.
It is rather, yeah.
How should you judge our progress? Well, we have certain defined performance metrics that we're targeting internally. So the first of those is a revenue forecast. So we have a very rigorous budgeting process at the beginning of every single year for each of our businesses, which throws out a consolidated revenue forecast. And I don't want to really do that before we do IPO, but that will be part of the IPO process, is to allow people to understand that. And basically, it comes down to doubling revenues every year for the next 3 to 4 years, which is the extent of our program at the moment. Secondly, we have a target internally to be self-funding, to be cash flow neutral across the group by fiscal 26. Fiscal 26 is the year to March 2026. And that means that we have profits from our Diffusion Alloys business, which fund the remaining development activities. So we will always have development activities. We are a development business. We will always have loss-making startup businesses that require development capital, but we have a core cash engine at the center of that, which is the Diffusion Alloys business, which just generates cash flow like there's no tomorrow. And that's a key metric for us, is getting to cash flow break even across the group.
Mm-hmm. So what would be okay, question then, please, Peter. What would be the timetable in terms of the IPO moving from, when do you want to IPO? Start next year?
March 24.
March 24.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You said that you're scaling up your capability because of the enhanced relationship with Johnson Matthey.
Yep.
How much cash have you got? That scaling up process will cost a lot, and are you going to seek more revenue from other sources? And secondly, you mentioned that the temperature range was a problem.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is that there could be a pink hydrogen that uses something that you don't even know about. How do you ensure that you're up to date with all of the industrial secrets that others are creating as we speak?
Okay, so the first... let me answer the question on hydrogen. So there are lots of different colours of hydrogen. I talked about blue hydrogen and green hydrogen. There's white hydrogen, which is naturally occurring hydrogen. There's grey hydrogen, there's black hydrogen, there's turquoise hydrogen. We map all of those market segments, so we understand what's happening in them. Some of those market segments we have a coating opportunity in, others we don't. So if you look at the green hydrogen industry, so we coat solid oxide fuel cells and solid oxide electrolyzers We don't coat PEM, we don't coat alkaline exchange membrane. There are various technologies that we don't touch, but we know where we have good market application for our technology. And sorry, your first question was? Oh, how much cash do we have? Yes, yeah. So when we did the agreement with Johnson Matthey, they paid us quite a decent chunk of money to enter into that partnership. Part of their thinking was obviously they want to ensure that we are still around. COVID for us was a pretty difficult time period as well. So our large project business in diffusion alloys just stopped overnight and has taken 2 years to really start to recover to a decent level. So as of today, as of March 2024, our budget is, and we're pretty much on budget, we will have £1.4 million of cash still on the balance sheet. The scale up of the plant is really, really low capital investment. So it's a couple of £100,000 worth of capex. Mostly we're scaling up through improving processes and improving workflow processes, and using some subcontracting, but it's not really expensive pieces of capital equipment.
That's great. Right on time, Chris. Thank you very much indeed.